The high school standards are written by area, so you can assign specific courses based on areas. So in other words, not everybody takes American history in 9th grade. They might take it in 10th grade. So in the high school years, you have some flexibility to move those standards around where it's most appropriately placed by course. But K-8 is very much just written by grade level. And I just took this as an example of one of the pieces. This is specific around multicultural education and curriculum, and of course we do that as part of our curriculum committee. I also like to remind our patrons that we also always have a public review of any materials that we're going to adopt for curriculum. So for example, when social studies was in for adoption and evaluation, we ran 3 days where anyone in the community was welcome to come in and look at the materials that we were examining. We'd narrowed it down to 3 and provide input as part of this process. This year, math is currently in the curriculum cycle, and so we will be doing that with our math resources in summer as well. So if you really are into math resources, you're welcome to come look and see what we're looking at. Update on the curriculum cycle, specifically social studies, as I already mentioned, is in full implementation. The current curriculum does align with the Nebraska state standards. Our teachers just finished tweaking and cleaning up our assessments. And then we have also aligned personal finance as a graduation credit, which is also required by law. We've always had personal finance, but now every student, starting with the class of 2027, will have it in PLCS, and the law actually states by 2028. And then the last piece I have to share with you is these are our units of study by the elementary and the secondary level, and the course that ties most directly with this state statute is American Government, which most kids take their junior or senior year. And I put the units there listed out for you because those are the specific things that are required in the law. But I thought it might be interesting for you to see the flow of our social studies curriculum by units, and 4th grade is tied to state history. Still, I think it has been for a long time. And with that, that brings me to the end of my information for the American Civics hearing.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Suri?
Just out of curiosity, I noticed on that previous slide, if you can go back one, that down to that far right, dropped course for space for personal finance that issues in geography. Was there a reason, or how did you come to that course?
So those 2 courses, whenever we bring a content area into the curriculum cycle, we always do look at, are we making sure we have the right courses to meet the needs of our students? That also requires us to look at the number of students that have taken it, where's it fitting in the schedule, and so on. Those 2 courses are what you would consider to be elective credits in social studies, meaning they were additional classes that we offered in that area. The participation had declined, but to be honest, we had to make room in the teaching space for personal finance, so that was also part of the consideration. So, and a couple, and I can't remember because it's been a couple of years that we did that, but like one of them hadn't even been offered at one of the high schools for a couple of years because they didn't have a high enough enrollment to run it. So.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions? There are no public comments on this, so I think that we can adjourn the meeting at 6:07. Now we'll move into our regular agenda. The call to order has already occurred during the hearing. So we'll move into communications. We have a celebration. Unfortunately, Charlie Solomon is unable to attend tonight. Dr. Rickley, would you like to tell us what Charlie was being honored for?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Ms. Witt and members of the board. So as the board and the community is probably well aware, we try to single out staff members and students who have brought some type of distinction to the school district, to their program, to their activity. And Charlie has certainly done that. We've reached out a couple of times. We know how busy it is. Charlie, if you're watching, We're sorry you weren't able to make it, but we certainly are very proud of your efforts. So when you look at the reason that Charlie's being honored this evening, she was named the 2024-25 Nebraska Gatorade Volleyball Player of the Year. That cuts across all classes. It's not big school, it's not small school, it's the entire state of Nebraska. Charlie is a senior at Papillion La Vista South, coached by Katie Tarman. Katie's an outstanding special education teacher in addition to being varsity girls volleyball coach. Just a few highlights from Charlie's career since she is a senior. In the past season, Charlie has tallied 610 assists, 6.1%, 307 kills, a 494 kill percentage, a 344 hit percentage, 263 digs, and 53 service aces. Those are some incredible stats in Class A, in any class, but particularly in Class A where the competition is particularly keen. Charlie will graduate as a 3-time state volleyball champion, and Charlie is the 7th Gatorade Nebraska Volleyball Player of the Year to be chosen from Papillion La Vista South. That is absolutely remarkable. Charlie, we're hopeful you're watching at home. We're still going to give you a round of applause with the board's permission. Can we please recognize Charlie Solomon as the 2024 Gatorade Player of the Year? So, Ms. Witt, we will make sure that we get a copy of her plaque delivered to her at South, and hopefully she's well and healthy. And with that, I would conclude my recognitions for the evening.
Thank you. And Charlie, if you change your mind and want to come to a meeting, we'll do it all again.
You better believe it.
Next on the agenda, we have the High School Student Council report from Papillion La Vista South. Abigail Bender.
Welcome.
Yes, unfortunately, Kinsey was unable to make it. She's been under the weather all weekend and today, so hopefully she gets better soon. So good evening. I am very excited to be here tonight, share with you some stuff that we've been doing at our school. It's been very busy, even though it's only February. So starting out with athletics, our boys basketball team is having an outstanding season. And we're currently ranked number 2 in Class A. Our girls team continues to compete with determination. They're battling through some injuries right now. A couple of the players have, but they are still showing resilience and growth as they constantly do. Tomorrow night, both teams are going to celebrate seniors with senior night against Lincoln High School. Basketball districts are coming up very soon, and we're very excited to see them finish their seasons. Wrestling, our boys wrestling team is also battling through some tough injuries right now, but they are pushing through. The girls team recently just competed at districts, and 2 of our girls just qualified for state. Aubrey Lower and Emily Berkey. One is a senior and one's a junior. And then this Saturday at 9 a.m., we are going to be hosting, Papillion La Vista South is hosting boys wrestling districts starting at 9 a.m. on Saturday. And then state wrestling is coming up next week. Moving on to bowling, our boys bowling team just qualified for state, which is going to be this Wednesday. And we are very excited to cheer them on. It's fun to watch. Caleb Usum also qualified individually for bowling, and he's going to compete individually on Thursday at state. Our girls bowling team also just had a strong showing at their districts, and then they won district runner-up. It's been a great season for them so far. We're very excited to see state this week. Moving on to swim and dive, it has been a very exciting week for them as well. Our swim team is combined, just PLC schools, so Monarchs and Titans work together on the swim and dive team. The prelims are on Friday, and then the finals will be on Saturday. And then Titan, Lily Sherman is going to be competing. She's going to be defending her Metro Championship title in diving, and the whole team has been putting on a very big effort. But yeah, we are very excited to celebrate them as they close their season. And then all spring sports are starting up very soon. March is approaching. So spring sports are going to be starting on Monday, March 3rd. Now on to the fine arts at our school. Our theater department has been really busy preparing for their seasons. The One Act Play Festival is coming up at the end of March, March 27th, 28th, and the 29th. All days at 7 p.m. in the theater will be the One Act Play Festival. They're going to be showing a variety of performances with a ton of diverse students in all the fine arts performing for us. Our spring play, Alice by Heart, which is an Alice in Wonderland spinoff, is going to be May 1st, 2nd, and 3rd at 7 p.m. This is going to be very unique. We've heard very good things from the members of the theater department that it's going to be a very exciting show. We're very excited to come watch it, and we hope you come watch it too. Band just went to the Gretna East Band competition this past weekend, and our percussion guard and winds all earned first place in their division, showing how hard they've been working throughout this whole school year, not just this semester. Also for band, our upcoming concert is going to be this Thursday, or next Thursday the 20th at 7 p.m. It's going to be a showcase of all of our students' talents and progress. Also, our varsity jazz bands have been competing all throughout the winter and have already received recognition at the first competition that was recently. We are very proud of them, and we look forward to them continuing to succeed. A lot of fine arts news. Our choir just had the South Titan Classic this weekend. It was a 2-day event that celebrated show choir excellence. Friday had middle school competitions, and Liberty Middle School actually earned the grand championship title. Saturday was the high school competition, and it was very, very exciting, a very fantastic showcase, highlighted a lot of performances from other schools around Nebraska, across Nebraska, but also from our school and our school district. Sorry. We also have another choir concert on Wednesday, the 26th of February at 7 p.m. It's going to be very, very fun. Choir performances are always very nice to watch. Now on to other organizations. We just had a polar plunge this past Saturday. I don't know if any of you guys saw that. Over 20 of our students and staff at Papillion La Vista South braved the icy waters of Lake Zurinsky and participated in the Special Olympics polar plunge. Together, all of them raised $16,000 for the cause. I don't know if any of you guys were there, but Mr. Moore shouted before jumping in, "It's for the kids." So it's a great reminder of why they did it. Now on to Student Council. We just hosted a Wish Week and Wish Game in January at our school, Papillion La Vista South, during the boys and girls basketball games. The grand total of $3,801.47 that we raised will all go to support a Make-A-Wish child. We are extremely close to getting to our $5,000 goal at State Student Council for Make-A-Wish. And we are going to be completing that with our Me and My Guy dance at one of the elementary schools soon this year. We're also planning Valentine's Day roses during all 4 lunches for students to buy for their friends, maybe Valentine's, and then some Teacher Appreciation Week preparation is starting now. Our DECA team just dominated at Metros. 16 Titans placed in the top 8, and 10 of those 16 Titans finished in the top 3. So a huge congratulations to all of them. It's very impressive. NHS, our National Honor Society members, have been very hard at work volunteering this semester. On Friday, they're going to be hosting a parents' night out for parents to go on a date night on Valentine's Day. So they're going to do some unpaid babysitting. They also just participated in a Habitat for Humanity build, which gave back to the community through hands-on service and building. And the record number of new inductees have been very very hard at work, volunteering, showing us why we do things for our school and raising the bar for us all. Finally, thank you for allowing me to present at this meeting and the positive impact that all of you guys have on our school and school district. We're very proud of what has been accomplished so far this semester, and we're very excited to continue.
Wait a second, Abigail, when is there time for learning? You guys are so busy. That was fabulous, thank you.
Great report, Abby.
Okay, on to our other reports. Our first report comes from Dr. Rickley, Superintendent.
Thank you very much, Ms. Witt, members of the board, and for our community members that are in attendance, thank you for being here, as well as those that are watching online at home. Before I jump into my superintendent's report, we do have a very special family that is with us this evening. Missy Stolley and her husband Brian, as well as Ainsley and Bryn, who are district students, are here this evening, and the reason why is this. So Dr. Settles recently had an opening in her department, Director of Student Services, formerly Student Services and HR, but I think we're moving forward. It'll focus on Student Services. Missy most recently was Director of Special Education and Student Services with our neighbors to the north, Ralston School District. So we don't never like poaching talent from our good neighbors, but sometimes it has to be done. So Missy, thank you for saying yes. We're thrilled to have Missy join the team. Brian was a longtime police officer for La Vista Police Department. Daughters attend our schools. They are district residents. They are parents. And fun fact, as Dr. Villarreal would remind me, they were chairs with our most recent bond campaign. So besides being district residents and just a great all-around family, they are great volunteers, and they are a really, really big part of this community. So Missy, Brian, Ainsley, Bryn, thank you for joining the Papillion La Vista Community Schools family. We can't wait to see the great work your mom's going to do for us, and thank you so much for being here. Moving on with the report, again, happy Monday, everyone. I know we're all probably anxiously watching the weather and asking the question, will we have the first snow day of the season? And I have no special insight to offer yet. Keep your eye on the weather. Wednesday's looking a little snowy. It's looking a little cold, but we'll continue to keep people posted as we know more about the weather. No school either way next Monday in observance of the federal holiday. On the legislative side, today we provided testimony on LB 303, which was introduced by Senator Hughes, really sponsored by Governor Pillen and introduced by Senator Hughes. So we were the very first school district to provide testimony. The governor actually introduced 303 himself. That's a bit of a rarity to see the governor in the chamber, so that was kind of fun. And we are at day 23 already. So as Mr. Richards will tell us with upcoming updates that we're well into the session. We're about 25% of the way done with a 90-day session. The other thing, just to remind the board, Mr. Richards kind of put together a plan for how we want to keep you updated moving forward, because things are going to pick up speed very quickly. They always do this time of year. We have the total list of bills, which numbers over 700. The list of education-related bills numbers a little over 100. There are still 2 weekly phone calls that Brett and I will participate in, the GNSA, Greater Nebraska Schools Association, which is every Friday afternoon, and then we meet with Tim Gay, who represents the district's interest every Wednesday morning. In addition, what Brett has put together is hearing schedules for the board so that they can kind of keep an eye on the hearing schedules. If there's a particular bill that the board has taken a position on or that you want to testify on as an individual, we can provide logistical support in terms of getting you to Lincoln, showing you where to go, helping you draft the testimony if that's needed. And then in addition to all of that, we're going to provide the monthly updates that'll come directly from Brett, and then at least once, probably twice more, we'll hear directly from Tim. So we're trying to attack it from a variety of angles so that you feel like you've got enough information in your hands to have an informed decision on legislation. Also had an exciting event in the district about a week and a half ago at Monarch. We hosted the grand opening of the PLV Media program. Special thanks to Meta. It was largely underwritten by a grant from Meta. Google also provided some financing. Rob McCartney, district grad Rob McCartney, was there to MC the ceremony. It was just a really cool showcase. Not just of the equipment and space, so that's very cool, but to see our kids walking the sponsors and the adults and the participants around the room and showing them the cutting edge technology. And the kids, of course, are gravitating to Rob because Rob's a really cool guy. And they're asking questions about their setup compared to what Rob has at Channel 7. And he said that this is basically what we have at Channel 7. He's like, you could walk into Channel 7 and the skills and the equipment that you've been using would transfer very easily to what we do. So it's a wonderful experience for our kids, particularly for those that want to go on to some type of broadcasting or journalism career. Also, I think Dr. Settles has sent out to the board, we have a new principal at Carriage Hill, Tracy McShane, who is a district transfer from G. Stanley Hall, currently the assistant principal at G. Stanley Hall. We're really excited to see the great work Tracy does at Carriage. That position, we will be, her backfill position, the assistant principal at G. Stanley, will be interviewing for in the coming weeks. Also wanted to do a shout out to the communications department. You all have swag sitting at your place, district sweatshirts. For the staff pick-me-ups, we've done any number of things. We've done coffee, we've done donuts, we've done different things. This year, I think Dr. Villarreal had the wonderful idea of doing sweatshirts that are customized to the building. So, of course, all of them have the Papillion La Vista logo on them, but they also have a picture of the building, Walnut Creek, Papillion La Vista South, whatever building you work at, as well as a landmark from that, in proximity to that school. The staff response has just been wonderful. You wouldn't think that handing somebody a sweatshirt would make that big of a deal, but when we go out, and it's largely our central office staff where we fan out across the district and hand deliver these, it makes a difference. It really does. Little things sometimes are the big things, and we're pleased to be able to do that. And finally, Abby stole a little bit of my thunder with the polar plunge. Papillion La Vista South was not the only building. We had multiple buildings doing the polar plunge this week, and I hope you caught all of the proceeds, regardless of the building, go to support the U.S. Special Olympics, which has a special place in the district's heart. We were two of the very first high schools in the state of Nebraska to be designated as National Champion Unified Schools. So it is alive and well. Special Olympics is alive and well in the Papillion La Vista Community Schools community. And with that, Ms. Witt, I would conclude my superintendent comments.
Thank you and welcome, Ms. Stoley.
Thank you for being here, Stolly.
Yes. Okay, next on our agenda, any board member reports?
Yes, I had 2 liaison lunches, one in each of the last 2 weeks since our last meeting. My first was at Bell Elementary. It'd been a little while since I'd had a liaison lunch there, so it was good to get back to Bell. What was a great fun fact as we were kind of ice-breaking and doing introductions, they're celebrating their 15th year anniversary, if you can believe that Bell is 15 years old. And still one of the largest buildings in enrollment in our district. So we talked a little bit about that. They're very excited for their piece of the bond. Not as significant as some of the other projects we have going on, but definitely going to be very impactful to the Bell folks. Like many of us, some of the biggest celebrations has been around ELA, and just the excitement and just how much fun the students are enjoying the new curriculum and the new materials. So they have 3 full grade levels implementing ELA right now. And we talked a lot about, before we get into the challenges, just the creativity and some of the special clubs and group activities that they do. So between Battle of the Books, they have Star Spangled Bulldogs, they do a 3D printing club, and one of the newest ones that's extremely popular is a knitting club. Yeah, we didn't know. Some of the biggest challenges we talked about, obviously we've talked about it at many board meetings, is just staffing and then meeting the needs of our high intensity behaviors and things. So good discussion on that, and we actually talked about some of the things that would help with that in subcommittee this evening. So, and then the biggest kind of final one was discussion on access to technology. So getting the question of what's the right, is it 1-to-1, what's the ratio of K through 2 versus, a 6th grade, or, are we preparing them with Chromebooks? So a good back and forth, but we are doing a technology audit and survey right now to gather some more information, so we'll get back to them on that. Second liaison lunch with very similar topics was at Walnut Creek last week. Had a great time there. It's amazing that building is as old as it is, I believe 24. I remember speaking to an assembly while I was in college about athletics and the Olympics, I believe. So it was fun to get back into the building. We had a very focused group. It was one of the first liaison lunches that I've done where the principal was, filling in and handling lunch duty, so we could have the direct attention of our folks from the building. So a good mix of folks. I really enjoy, I think I say it every time we have liaison lunches, but I love our new format to have a solid 45 minutes to an hour with an engaged group. These were all members of their CIS team, so good background. So again, we spoke about technology, again, staffing, and what was the one other topic we spent more time on at the end? Yeah, behavior, and then I thought there was one last thing, and I had it on my notes. I know. My notes were not in my pile, so. But it was, as always, they're so insightful, just great conversation, so always appreciate the schools hosting us. Outside of that, just as many of us, just hitting as many activities around the district as possible. I did not go anywhere near that Titan Classic on Friday and Saturday night. The parking lot was absolutely packed, but it was pretty impressive. I don't know who coordinated the logistics of it, but they had signage for where, bus parking here, this. I mean, it was like a well-oiled collegiate level setup to make sure everybody got in safe and enjoyed the performances. So I saw a lot of Facebook posts and things from groups. It sounded just amazing. So.
I had a meeting today with the NASB Legislative Committee. We went through 15 bills that are set for hearings this week. Dr. Rickley already talked through it, 303, which was today. For the board members, just remember on the NASB online portal, you can find all of those bills as well with live updates on when their hearing dates are and then what position NASB is going to take, if any position, with potential next steps. And if you have any questions on those or the position that NASB has taken, just let me know. We can chat through them.
I can go. Just real quick, I had a liaison luncheon with YATP, and then I took my kids to the Hanging with the Titans event at Papillion La Vista South, and they had a great time. So yeah.
Anyone else? Well, I was absent last week because I was sick, so when I got my folder of thank yous from everybody, I want to say thank you for the great outreach from our schools, but I had I read them all, but I had a particular request from this young student. She says, or he, I'm not sure, more baked cheesy breadsticks, please, at lunch. So,
I can second that, Ms.
yeah,
Witt.
I'm sure that represents the desire of more than just this one.
They are
person.
quite yummy.
And I want to thank Brian for taking over last meeting when I was not able to be here, so thank you. I have one other change that we want to make on the agenda. If you will look at under discussion, item A, mass communications, we're going to put that one off. They're not ready to present that, so that one will not be presented tonight. Committee reports, buildings and grounds.
We have not met, but we are meeting this Friday.
Human resources and student services.
We did meet this evening prior to the start of the meeting. Spent most of the time talking about the staffing request, which is on tonight's agenda. Also went through kind of the details. It's the deadline for internal within-district transfer requests was on February 1st, so went through the preliminary data on that. Discussed that the 2000s are up for review. That's also on tonight's agenda.
Curriculum and Americanism.
We have not met since the last meeting, but we do have a meeting scheduled this Thursday. And we will be talking later about the continuous improvement visit, get an update on that at this meeting.
Thank you. We have no public comments for agenda items tonight, so we'll move on to action items. Action by consent.
I'll make the motion to approve the action by consent items.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Madler and a second by Mr. Lotus. Any comments? Call the roll.
Mr. Madler?
Yes.
Ms. Witt?
Yes.
Mr. Lotus?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Our next item is Policy 1000, Public Relations and Communications. Is there anyone presenting on that?
So we received a handful of comments from the board, Ms. Witt, members of the board, on the 1000 series. Nothing really substantive. There was a little bit of cleanup, a few additions, but nothing certainly of substance. And our recommendation to the board would be to advance the policy 1000 as slightly amended.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I can make a motion to accept Policy 1000, Public Relations and Communication changes to policies 1001, 1003, 1101, 1102, 1401, and 1405 as presented.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Mr. Madler. With no questions, can we have the roll?
Ms. Witt?
Yes.
Mr. Lotus?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Madler?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Our next action item is the Springfield Platteview land transfer. Mr. Richards.
Thank you, Ms. Witt. Good evening, everybody. At the last meeting, we kind of went over the overview of both of these properties tonight from Springfield Platteview. According to our December of 2016 agreement with Springfield Platteview to transfer land basically between 60th Street to 128th Street north of Capehart Road that is undeveloped that will be developed. And so that's why these things come up in parcels. As they're being developed is when they kind of transfer over to our district with the approval of both boards. So at this time, we have a Belterra Phase 3. It's estimated at about 51.238 acres. It's generally located on the east side of 120th Street and south of Schramm Road. If approved tonight, Springfield Plattview's also got it on their agenda for their board to approve. Then it will go to the Nebraska State Reorganization Committee this spring for final approval. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that may have come up since the last meeting on this property.
Thank you, Mr. Richards. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the adjustment of school district boundaries interlocal agreement between Springfield Platteview Community Schools and Papillion La Vista Community Schools of an estimated 51.238 acres in the Belterra subdivision as presented and on file with official district records and the processing of school reorganization plans to transfer and attach property by change of boundaries in accordance with the terms and conditions of the agreement under and pursuant to the Learning Community Reorganization Act, Section 79-4117 to 79-4129, and other Nebraska laws, and that the board president, vice president, or superintendent be authorized to execute and deliver the agreement and implement and administer the transactions thereunder for and on behalf of this school district.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Madler and a second by Mr. Lotus. Vote, roll call, please.
Mr. Lotus?
Yes.
Ms. Wood? Yes. Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Madler?
Yes.
Ms. Witt?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Item D under action, Springfield Platteview Land Transfer, Shadow Lake Phase 1. Mr. Richards.
Yes, our next property is Shadow Creek Phase 1, generally located west of 84th Street between Schramm and Capehart Road. Eventually, we'll be getting all that property, but the first parcel being phased in is estimated to be at 46.431 acres. This is very similar to the process that I brought up with Belterra, going to the State Reorganization Committee from both boards tonight.
Motion, please.
Yep, I'll make the motion to approve the adjustment of school district boundaries interlocal agreement between Springfield Platteview Community Schools and Papillion La Vista Community Schools of an estimated 46.431 acres in the new Shadow Creek subdivision as presented and on file with official district records, and the processing of school district reorganization plans to transfer and attach property by a change of boundaries in accordance with the terms and conditions of the agreement under and pursuant to the Learning Community Reorganization Act, Sections 79-4-117 to 79-4-129, and other Nebraska laws, and that the board president, vice president, or superintendent be authorized to execute and deliver the agreement and implement and administer the transactions thereunder for and on behalf of the school district.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Lotus and a second by Ms. Wood. If no discussion, please call the roll.
Ms. Wood? Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Madler?
Yes.
Ms. Witt?
Yes.
Mr. Lotus?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Last item under action items, Portal Elementary Project bid. Mr. Richards.
Yes, thank you again. BCDM was here a few meetings ago to present the overall portal project to the board and the community. We did receive a great number of bids here, 8 of them. The low bid of $4,350,358, including the alternates, was by D.R. Anderson Constructors. D.R. Anderson has a pretty good reputation working with schools, other projects. They did 2, or their latest 2 were Anderson Grove and Carriage Hill within the district. So that was the 2018 bond, and I was told, I wasn't around then, but BCDM said they did a really good job with those 2 projects. So happy to have them on board as a recommendation tonight for the acceptance of this bid.
I will make the motion to, 1, approve the lump sum bid and authorize and approve the construction contract with D.R. Anderson Constructors for the low bid amount of $4,350,358 for the Portal Elementary project, and 2, delegates authority to and authorizes, approves, and directs the president of the Board of Education, superintendent of schools, assistant superintendent of business services, or designee for the district to sign, execute, and deliver such construction contract, sign and approve any change orders, retain necessary professionals for assistance, pay the contract price, approve change order increases and expenses related to the construction project and site preparation work, and take all other action necessary to complete any requirements or obligations under the construction project and contract.
Second?
Thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Madler and a second by Mr. Lotus. Roll call.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Madler?
Yes.
Ms. Witt?
Yes.
Mr. Lotus?
Yes.
Ms. Wood? Yes. Motion carried.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, discussion and information items. The CIP Continuous Improvement Visit Update. Ms. Siri?
All right. So tonight, I wanted to give to you, the Board of Education and to our community kind of a overview of the summary of the visit that occurred, my gosh, it feels like yesterday, 2 weeks ago in our district, and share with you some of the information that we have learned. We have received our final report. We will be sharing that with our administrative team on Wednesday. But at the end of a visit, the team always takes a moment and kind of gives a broad overview of the findings, in which they then give you more details in the report. And so that broad overview summary is what I'm going to share with you tonight. And we're going to talk through just kind of what it all means and what are our next steps moving forward. So before I start, I do want to tell you that the slides here, I was very strategic. The slides that are gold and gray, the district colors, are ones that I put in. The ones that are blue are right from the team. They use NDE's colors, and I thought that would be a good way for you to know which ones that I'm kind of summarizing and which ones they actually shared with us. So as you may recall, the visit was in January. It started on the night of the 20th, and it concluded on the 23rd with that exit report summary. We did have a cold day on the 21st, so on the night of the 20th, we kicked off with the process, and both Skip and Marcus were here as board representatives to answer questions, and after dinner, we quickly went to begin to rebuild the schedule. Before I go too much into detail, I do want to say Angie Wright, the Director of Assessment, she took lead on this project. She did an amazing job. She organized all the templates and worked with the principals to ensure that the information that was needed by the team was available. And also, our principals then spent a great deal of time trying to ensure that they built a schedule that would give the team the opportunity to see what Papillion La Vista Community Schools does every day, so that the recommendations and feedback that they gave us were genuine and could help move us forward. There were lots of people that put in a lot of extra work on this, but honestly, Angie's leadership was stellar, and I really do appreciate the principals and their SIP teams working on this. So, with that being said, the external team had two co-leads, Dr. Josh Fields, who is superintendent in Seward and does a number of these visits each year, and then Todd Wolverton, who is at NDE, and he sits in the SIP department. So they were our leads, and then along with them, there were 17 educators, so 19 of them total, that served on the external team. And I listed there for you some of the positions that those individuals serve in their current role. You can see it was really great because we had a really diverse group that brought a lot of different expertise to the visit. We had a special education folks with background in that. We had a student service person, curriculum. We had a superintendent, principals. So just a wide variety of experience and size of districts, as well as all districts across the state of Nebraska. And I just want to say thank you to those individuals because they give their time to do this. It is kind of a volunteer where you go through a training and then you serve on one of these teams. So the first thing they did, and you'll see that this looks like a wonky cut and paste. It is because I literally pulled it from their slide. But this is our mission statement. And one of the things that this team does as part of Rule 10, it states that our mission statement needs to be reviewed by an external team. And it is part of this process. So one of the first things they did was we shared our mission statement with them before they came. And some of the questions they asked centered around this, and then they also looked for evidence of it when they visited classrooms and buildings. So this you can see is a blue slide. This comes right from the team's slide set that they shared at that external exit review. This kind of explains the purpose of the visit. Like I said, it is in law. It's part of Rule 10. It has to occur once every 5 years. This is the first time that we participated in the Nebraska Department of Education's continuous improvement process. And I will say that this is the first time that they have had a team this large because Dr. Rickley and I, when we met with them early on, felt it was important, if it was possible, they visit every school. And they accommodated us in doing that, and I just feel like it was really valuable because even though we are one district and one family, our school buildings are different as they serve different needs of different learners. So if you look at the numbers during the day of what happened, and this did go down because of the cold day, we did lose some of the classroom visits, but overall they visited 286 classrooms. They did 150 interviews of staff. 47 administrator interviews, 31 parent and community, and the parent number was a little less than what we typically would have because we didn't ask them to come in on the cold day. And 162 student interviews and 2 board members. So the visit really consists of information that we share with them, including student achievement data, our demographic data, our continuous improvement process in our district, our building's goals, our district strategic plan, and then these interviews along with classroom visits. And from that, they give us what they notice, see, as well as things that they think are celebrations and recommendations that they would make. So the first thing was they really looked at the strategic plan because those have been the goals that we have focused on the last 5 years. And this information there's nothing in here that you haven't seen before, but they kind of captured the progress on those goals. So if you recall, our first strategic goal really focuses on the teaching and learning side of things, focusing on rigor. It also included technology increase, data access for our teachers at the classroom level. And so then they gave us some feedback on the progress they noted. Part of this also came from our action planning of our strategic plan. They looked through those documents as well. Goal 2, if you recall, centered around mental health and the supports and access that we provide our students. And they talked about the specific strategy that they saw in the strategic planning documents. And then they noted the progress that was also noted. This was something that they shared also in the summary of the exit report. The team overall was greatly impressed and very much appreciated all of the supports that we provide students in the district at the classroom level, whether it be paras in supportive instruction or special needs, to our behavior coaches, our instructional coaches, mental health liaison. They talked about how we often have taken on challenges early on, and they could see where systems were starting to form that was really supporting our students in the area of mental health. Goal 3 then is the human resource one. This was really about recruiting and retention of staff, as well as continuing to ensure that our teaching and learning was founded in relationships. And so again, here's some progress that they noted tied directly to the strategic plan of some of the work that Katie and her team have really focused on the last few years. So then the second part then was really feedback. And what I've captured here for you is a sample. So every building got celebrations and recommendations. So I pulled some of them off because we're not going to go through each of the buildings tonight. And the buildings really are working through that, and they will get the full report on Wednesday. They don't even have it yet. But you can kind of see that they really focused in on the school improvement plan, and then how could they make it better? How could we become stronger as a district? So some of and these are both from high school and elementary. I just pulled a few. They also visited the middle schools as well. I would tell you, I think one of the common pieces that we saw on not all of our schools, but a lot of them is really focusing on academic outcomes. So they had goals and they had lots of things that they were implementing as systems and processes, but they really recommended that that be tied back to student achievement outcomes, which I thought was a good recommendation and a good thing to note. So we'll work on finding support for that in our system. They also applauded the work that we had done on rigor, but recognized that it needs to continue, as we do as well. Then they also did the district as a whole. And this is their slide directly. You can see that they noted that as a community, we are rooted in relationships and partnerships. That included the work with Cooperation Best and the businesses, as well as individual relationships that our teachers establish with our students so they can be more successful as learners. They talked about the high school academies, the career and technical opportunities for our students to kind of explore possible pathways they noted was unique and intense, and they did visit the Health Academy, and I think, honestly, those students kind of blew them away with their passion, which is great. They talked about the mental health piece and like I said earlier, the support and resources that we have put there. They did talk about professional development opportunities for staff. It's not going away, but finding skills that we can help to build capacity in our folks that are serving kids, they thought was a real celebration. They talked about the toolbox process and curriculum development and how it is a celebration that we utilize our teachers to help with that process. As the practitioners, they develop the curriculum together with the directors, and it makes a really strong, fluid process. And then they were very, very impressed with all of the intentional efforts that we've had to grow our own staff through the Education Academy, but also all the things that have been done, including the board's work around the stipends and so on to help retain and recruit staff. Recommendations to the district was that we continue with the rigor journey, ensuring that student academic outcomes are central to that definition. They talked about providing a standard process to review student academic data. Each building kind of does it a little bit different, so standardizing that they thought would be a helpful thing that could help move our district forward. And then monitoring that progress, which some of that we've done with the strategic plan and ESSER's dollars with Otis, but we're very early on in that. As a district, they talked about as our demographic shift, we have really good systems in place to ensure equity of resources, but that would be something we're going to have to continue to watch and make sure that we continue to make sure there's equity between buildings. And then as we develop our new strategic plan, they really encouraged us to continue to ensure that we had alignment between goals, strategies, and professional learning opportunities, clear down at the building level. In other words, the professional learning pieces for within the building should be serving the building goals. And sometimes they saw that alignment and sometimes they didn't. And so they talked about building some consistency in that, as well as the strategies that we're putting in place with district initiatives. The last thing that I was going to share with you is and I know Skip and Marcus can talk about this, but every person they interviewed, from our students to, I think they even asked Dr. Rickley, they asked, what's one word that you would use to define Papillion La Vista Community Schools? And then from that, they built this Wordle, and you can see the words that continually came up, and that I feel it really does capture our district. So that was kind of where they ended that piece as they did their exit report. So the next steps are we will, like I said, provide the detailed report to the school buildings on Wednesday at the admin team and then talk about next steps. But really, as a district as a whole, this really leads into strategic planning. So we have kind of built out a rough timeline. I've shared it with my subcommittee where we've looked at that, but now we'll get going on that part. This is one piece that informs strategic plan. For the next 5 years in the district, we'll also do needs assessments as well as lots of conversations with the advisories and input groups to help formulate that strategic plan, and then we will form that community group that represents business partners, parents, teachers, administrators, and students. Will come together, take all of this information, and we'll start to draft what the next 5 years will look like. So. And that concludes my presentation. Questions that you have or anything, Dr. Rickley, you wanted to add, or Skip and Marcus as you participated in that?
Just really wanted to reiterate what Shireen said. Shireen's being humble. Angie did, in fact, do a lot of the logistics and planning, but it doesn't happen without Shireen's leadership. So thank you, Shireen. Again, Marcus and Skip, thank you for representing the board. They had a front row seat to their superintendent running around with his hair on fire as we were trying to figure out what to do with school the next day. But really appreciate having the board not only at that opening dinner where we kind of laid out the context for the district. We did a presentation that kind of provided a broad overview. but they also had an opportunity to serve as interview subjects. And when you saw the numbers at the beginning, even with the cold weather day and that impacting some of our numbers, like students and parents, for example, I feel like they took a really good snapshot, a really good dipstick of what's going on in the school district. So it's the single most exhaustive school accreditation visit that I've been part of. I've led them as an external team leader myself. I've been part of them. This is, I think, my second, perhaps my third here. But this has been by far the most exhaustive of any that I've been a part of. To have every single building visited is a pretty remarkable thing. That's pretty rare in Class A. So thank you, Marcus, and Skip in particular for representing from the board, and Shireen, thank you for your leadership.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to join. If they had any feedback for Skip and I too from our interview, let us know if there's any recommendations for us. Yeah, long list, separate meeting. Yep, next steps for the individual buildings. I know you said there's a lot of recommendations. So I assume those building recommendations shared with principals. But then what's the follow-up for the principals then on those recommendations?
Yeah, so we just started to have some conversations today on the SIP team. Obviously, our MTSS SIP process, we'll go back and look at that. I think there's some district system pieces that we need to put in place to help support buildings, like with the data piece and that sort of thing. We will also have conversations with the principals. I think there's some similarities in some buildings, so I think they'll be able to tap each other. I think conversations in the array, but ultimately they'll look at that, identify which pieces. The whole purpose is to get better and stronger, and so then I also share copies with Cabinet, and we talked about it because I think that will be important as we visit with our building principals about what next steps they're doing to improve their building and move their building forward. So it'll also be part of that conversation, which we currently right now talk about their SIP goals. So it will be good to have them incorporate that piece into that continuous improvement process for their building.
Yeah, there is accountability for that as well, Mr. Madler. So as Shireen explained, we have both district SIP goals and building SIP goals. Very often there's congruence, there's alignment, but sometimes what La Vista West may need may be different than what Papillion La Vista South may need. But then on the accountability piece, and I think I've mentioned this to the board, we do when we sit down and we do the accountability, when we talk about the performance of our principals at the end of the year, we do that jointly as a team. Now, each one of the assistant superintendents is responsible for a series of buildings, but when we sit down at the end of the year and talk about how are we doing at Monarch High, how are we doing at Liberty Middle School, we actually do those collaboratively. Shireen's gonna see things that frankly I don't see. Brett's gonna see things from the facility and budget that I don't see. So we sit down together, and a big part of those conversations will be looking at what those recommendations were coming out of this to make sure that there's actually follow-through happening with that. So it's a really, really important question.
Can I ask a little bit, the student academic outcomes, is that can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because I believe that we focus a lot on our student academic outcomes. So is it in the way that we're writing our goals? Is that they want them written differently? Or?
Yes, I would say that. I would say for some buildings, the recommendation was to tie it back to student academic. I had kind of the same question, and they gave me multiple examples, and I don't want to disclose here before principal has seen it. But they talk about, trying to think of one they did with the district office, community closet. Community closet was a great one. They talked about what an amazing thing and what a great thing for kids, for families of need. But they talked about, like, at the end of the day, you're doing that to ensure that students, to remove hurdles of students so they can be successful learners in the community. Now, they weren't saying we needed a goal tied around that, but that's what they were talking about. Like, so often you'll have a goal in a building, like it might be culture-centered. Well, how are we going to know that? We want to make sure what we're doing can be measured in positive outcomes for student achievement. And not all of them go there. And sometimes they can't. Sometimes the operational side, you can't. And they also talked about that, like when it's appropriate, it should. But I do think some of the recommendations they gave specific in that area would be very helpful to our buildings. Like I have a building that I can think of offhand. I've already talked to the principal because the principal's already starting to formulate some ideas, but they had done some pretty unique things with their schedule around services for students with special needs. And the question came was, well, is it making an impact? Are the students, are they achieving better with those changes? And I don't think we'd looked at it in that regard. And so that was that's kind of what they were saying, is like, you know, one of the things you always want to check is the impact moving teaching and learning forward. So it was good. So that's, I don't know if that answered your question, but.
Yeah, I was hopeful that it wasn't getting back to percentages and all that kind of specific type of.
Well, they did talk about specific achievement goals. But I think we have ways of doing that, especially as we have more data available to us. So the SMART goals, basically, making sure they're measurable.
Yeah,
So.
thank you.
Thank you, that was pretty cool. I think, did they do like the other, the old, give you a score on, or?
No, there's no score, but I will tell you, this is a side note, I haven't even told Andy this yet, but I was, you know, I think sometimes the greatest compliment you can give is flattery, right? And when you want to try to replicate something. I received 3 emails over the weekend and today 1, so I have 3 total, of folks that served on the team. They want to bring folks to see something particular in our district that they're trying to get established in theirs, which that's nice. It's nice to hear. And I think it's huge compliments, honestly, to the leaders in our buildings, because that's really what they're trying to emulate and figure out. The academies was one. High school was another. Both high schools, they wanted to come and I have an ESU that wants to bring a couple of principals to come visit with our 2 high school principals and talk about how they are handling the cell phone. They were shocked how far ahead we were, that's their words, with that and how they implemented that. So, and then also some of the resources that have been put in place with support study halls for students as an intervention that are struggling with failures in a class. And so, yeah, I think the networking that came from it, having 19 people was a lot, but the networking, I think, is really powerful too. So.
I've always thought that after those visits that they should have a repository for things you can do if a district needs help in a certain area. Look at this,
Resources,
yes.
yeah. Ms. Witt brought up an interesting point, that this is the first time, at least in my tenure, that we've used an NDE frameworks model. Under previous accreditation visits, we used, it's known many names, as Ms. Witt well knows. It was NCA, North Central Accreditation, and then it became Advanced Ed, and then it was Cognia, and there's probably at least one name. Basically, it's same accreditation agency, but one of the things that they did the last time it was here under Cognia is they used a classroom observation tool called an Elliott, and then they aggregate those scores up, and you actually do get a district score. And interestingly, and some of you may remember this, Ms. Fisher certainly would have, the superintendent who was leading the team, he was from Chicago, and he said, we've never seen scores like this anywhere. And he's like, I do these visits all across the planet, not because they also do the Department of Defense schools overseas. He's like, I've just never seen scores this high. So we've used different processes, one that's probably more score-driven, the whole NCA Advanced Ed Cognia, where we've done very well. This is probably, I don't want to say it's subjective, but some of these things, as Ms. Wood pointed out, are in the eye of the beholder. But in both cases, I think we got some really great commendations. I think we got some really actionable things that we can do to make this district even better.
Thank you. On to our next item then. We have a staffing proposal for Ms. Settles, Dr. Settles.
Yes, thank you very much. Bringing you to you tonight, as our planning has been in full force for next school year. So wanted just to talk through this with you a little bit and answer any questions that you might have at this first look at it. But then, of course, in these upcoming couple of weeks, we'll want to take additional feedback if there's any further questions or thoughts for us. So just a quick review of what kind of our steps are. So at one of the previous meetings, you got to see kind of our annual review, looking at that October numbers for student demographics, and you looked at student growth with that of our district, as well as our makeup of our staff. So besides that, back in December and early January, we held meetings with every school administrator, talking through what are the needs that they see, what do they foresee as potential turnover, what are their greatest areas of need. And we then looked as well as what are we trying to accomplish, what aligns with goals, what are the types of things that you're hearing most, that we're hearing most, and seeing as potential things that need some attention. We also held our discussion with HR subcommittee members. The first meeting that we briefly discussed that was back in December, and then we met again this evening. So as we kind of establish the goals, what are we trying to achieve with the staffing for the 25-26 school year? We, of course, have all observed that we do have slowed growth. While we did see growth, it is still slowed. We also know how important it has been to this Board of Education that we maintain effective class sizes, and that's going very well right now. It has been going well over the last several years, so we want to make sure that we're keeping up with that. We also know that there's some things that you regularly hear about from your liaison lunches, as do we from just the different day-to-day situations that arise. So how can we address those concerns but still stay and consider budget when we know that personnel is the largest by far portion of our budget? We also, this year, were able to consider comments by that external visit team that Shireen just gave you the report on. And then we're always talking budget and that overall impact. It'd be really easy to, throw some money at something and try to solve a problem, but we really have to be mindful and can't just Band-Aid everything with spending more money. So wanted just to have you consider I guess, let me back up one quick second. This is going to be a very careful year. We're going to be very conservative here, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But one of the biggest things, and really our main area of request, is in the area of school psychologists. So currently we have 19 school psychologists. We also do a little bit of contracting for some additional work for school psychologists. We know that school psychologists are extremely valuable in the fact that they do bring knowledge of behavior, of mental health, of academics. So they're really very well-rounded personnel and able to help in quite a number of ways. So we did just recently have a high school behavior coach resignation. Met with those high schools and made the determination that rather than filling that with a behavior coach, we'll fill that with a psychologist support. So a school psychologist will replace that position. Again, a lot of similar skill set in there, but truly really able to focus in on some of the areas of need. We also have a goal of increasing time for school psychologists at multiple buildings. So again, we know this is an area that you really do get a lot of service out of. They're kind of jacks of all trade, I would call them. So one of our areas that you're going to see the request here is to add an additional 1.4 FTE of school psychologist time. The majority of that would come at the elementary of 1.2. So some of our buildings that are sharing positions, which most do share, most of our school psychs do go to more than one building, especially at the elementary level. But this would allow us to add a bit more FTE to several of the buildings and that have a little bit more of the need. 0.2 of that would come at the early childhood level. So this is something that Tammy Voisin and her team have really spent a lot of time studying and figuring out what is our greatest area of need, and this is what has been determined in looking at multiple options of the greatest area of need. Wanted to also just, this one's more of a reminder, but something that we have been trying over the last year and a half or so is the RBTs, or the Registered Behavior Techs. And this one is kind of more of a reminder that it does require a board-certified behavior analyst to be able to supervise RBTs. So we have had to contract for our RBTs in the past because we did not have somebody who is a BCBA to be supervising them as is required for RBTs. So over this past year, we have had one of our behavior coaches obtaining her full certification as a BCBA, and that is almost completed. So for next year, our RBT positions, which we currently have 5 of those, rather than having to contract for those, we will be able to bring those on as our own employees. We'll see a cost savings there because when you're not paying a middle person, right, to make that happen and have the administrative costs with that, they'll be able to be on our benefits and on our payroll. So that'll be a nice piece. It also will kind of give us that availability to figure the RBTs into our staffing formulas as we look to fill all of our various needs. So should help in multiple ways. One of the areas I think this will help is, as we all know, paraprofessionals is still our greatest area of shortage throughout the district. I think RBTs is a great way to grow our own. We have had some paras leave and go do the RBT program at some of the companies that are out there that provide those. So I think this is a great opportunity to take some people who really have those knowledge and skills and the want to help in a greater way and be able to bring them on as RBTs and go through some training program there. So not anything you'll see as a staffing add there, but more of a shift as far as how we're spending the dollars. Other than that, as we've already plugged in all of the numbers and continue to look at ongoing enrollment, including transfer requests and open enrollment, we really are sitting at a pretty good spot right now. So with the number of staff that we have for elementary, middle, and high school, it really is appropriate right now for the projected numbers. So you don't see any other big requests as far as adding teachers. Also in special education, we're currently at an appropriate spot for our projected numbers as we consider all of the needs coming in. Now, of course, with both of those, there always are some shifts where a section might be moving from one school to another, and we're always keeping a close eye on that. So that's something that we've already projected for next year and met with the principals about. This is a conservative approach because we do have next year, in a year from now, we'll be hiring for opening a new building. So with that comes some fixed costs that you for sure know you need in the area of personnel, besides all of the things like keeping the lights and water on. So that's something that we're certain of. We already know that school will be opening, and we know that there's going to be some asks of you next year. So to be able to be conservative in the ask this year was really important. Just a reminder, I think each subcommittee has had a chance to see this over the last several months, but as the Learning Community Grant is something that has been approved, at this time, we're ready to start in the next several weeks, over the next several weeks and months, hiring for those positions. So just a reminder of the positions that came with the Learning Community Grant. The Early Literacy Facilitator, that was a requirement of the grant, so it focuses not only on early, but also on literacy, and it does require that there's a grant manager with that. So that facilitator would be the grant manager. We also put a focus on attendance, and you've already seen all of the work that has been going into this, but we really want to just continue with this work as we really do battle chronic absenteeism regularly and just really work to build those strong systems throughout the school district. So the plan with that is a social worker. So we'll be working toward that position here soon as well. And then those literacy intervention support assistants, those are non-certified staff, so someone who is currently in a substitute teacher role or a floater sub role, or maybe just has an extra, some sort of a background, extra interest in the area of literacy. Those will be to provide classroom support, but will be specially trained in the area of literacy to do so. So those are just those ads, and we didn't want to forget to mention those to you. So as you're kind of have the summary here, we'll be requesting from you the 1.4 FTE in the area of school psychologists. We did not we have not seen over the last several years the need to really dip too much into the growth positions, but the growth positions are something that Mr. Richards will budget for just in case. So you'll probably recall the last time we utilized all of those was when we added the remote program during COVID times, and we did utilize every position of the 7 total for growth, but that is really the only time that we've had to dip that far into it. Other than that, there's times that we'll ask you for a 1.0 or even a portion of a 1.0 as different needs come up, but we try to really be very careful and utilize absolutely everything we already have prior to needing that, making shifts when needed. So you'll see that top half of the screen, those are the items that you'll see as the request. And then we always just want to make sure that we're being transparent. So you'll see on there the Learning Community Grant position requests as well. That's kind of the summary. Are there any specific questions that come to mind at this point?
No, I appreciate when there is an opening like the behavior coach resignation, that the team gets together and thinks through like what is the right plan for then that head count. I mean, that just shows that we're thoughtful through, every hire that we make and every position, and not just doing it because that's how it's been done. So thanks for having that conversation, and I think the switching it to the school psych makes a ton of sense for those schools.
Is the school psych position that we're adding that 1.4, is that an immediate hire or something that, is that this school year that we're going to implement?
No, we would start right away. We actually do have right now some school psych. We'll have a position that'll post tomorrow because we do already know of an opening, but that would be for next year. So we'll start hiring for next year, and then hopefully in 2 weeks have the availability to go ahead with this full 1.4.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you see the 0.4 in there. We don't especially think we'll hire a 0.4, but some of our specialist areas are ones that people may only want to work a 0.8 or a 0.5 or a 0.7, and we've found some success in being a district that does allow for some of that flexibility with some of those specialty positions. And that is really able to happen because of some of the shared buildings and things that I mentioned earlier.
Any other questions, comments? Nope.
Let me just, on that last question that you had though, the Learning Community Grant positions, though, the funds are available now, so those we do anticipate will start
I was going
sooner.
to ask that, actually, it's down on my list, but I thought that meant they would start also with the next fiscal year, but
Yeah.
that money's available right now, go for it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our last item under discussion is review of policy 2000. Dr. Settles?
Yep, so the 2000s administration are up for review in the month of February, so we discussed that, but if in our subcommittee, but please do share if you have items that you wish to have looked at with either myself or a member of the HR Student Services Subcommittee.
Thank you. We have no public comment for items not on the agenda tonight. So item 6, our future board calendar on February 11th, liaison lunch at the PLCS, 11 o'clock with Ms. Wood. On February 14th, liaison lunch at Liberty Middle School with Mr. Madler. February 17th, there's no school. It's a staff development day, though. On the 17th also, there's a foundation board meeting at 6 o'clock at the central office. And on February 24th is the next Board of Education meeting here at 6 p.m. I want to thank Ms. Branco for being our recorder tonight. Get used to hearing it, because I'm going to say it every meeting. And with that, we'll adjourn the meeting at 7:22.
Outstanding. You could say whatever you want to say when you're the president.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it, right?